Bitcoin likes being in six figures. Let's hope it stays up there. And I think there's probably more reasons why it should than it shouldn't, despite this little pullback that's occurring. Anyway, let's get straight on with the price action analysis, as that's what I love to do. So this is the 4 hour beautiful sort of up steps, like climbing a set of stairs, all the way from 75 to the current all-time high at 112, something like that. They're not accurate numbers. And you can see that as being a sequence of kind of four, really. One, expansion in volatility, followed by a consolidation. Two, followed by consolidation. Three, followed by consolidation. And then the last one, four. Now, if it's going to follow the same kind of pattern, then what you wouldn't want to see is, at this point, to be honest, too much more downside on this 4 hour time frame. What you'd want to see is some sideways to let the Bollinger Bands cool off without the price breaking down too much. If the price continues to the downside from here, you'd probably have a target somewhere near the bottom of the Bollinger Band. That's if it happens, say, in the next 2, 3, 4 4 hour candles. So it's nearly the weekend. Is that particularly likely? Well, I can't predict the future, so I'm not going to say whether or not it's likely, but I feel it's less likely. Let's put it that way. Sort of contradicting myself then. Anyway, so if this became a bit more of a swift move to the downside, then yes, probably a move down to about 105, maybe below. But if price holds up, and we shall see, particularly if it holds up above the midpoint of the Bollinger Band, which is around that sort of 10, well, basically where price is at the moment. If price doesn't break down too far from where it is, then that would set the wheels in motion for another one of these sideways moves. And like the previous 1, 2, 3, and potentially 4, maybe the fifth one will be to the upside. That seems a bit too easy, if I'm honest. And I don't know. I would like to see that happen, but that just seems a bit too easy. So I wouldn't be surprised if there's some sort of spanner in the works. The daily time frame momentums are still very much to the upside. The RSI won't get into the bear zone as long as it's closing 4 hours above 106.5. So that is, kind of all these highs here. So that should be a support area. And you can see the MACD definitely to the upside and miles away from crossing the zero line. So momentum to the upside on the 4 hour time frame. Now the daily. So the daily is just trending really, and it will continue to trend as long as Bitcoin's above 103.5, i.e. above the midpoint of the Bollinger Band. Could easily pull back down to there and then continue on. If Bitcoin did quickly, so over the next few days, come back down to 103 and close below, then potentially you're looking at a swift move back down below 100k, I would suspect, or at least around 100k. Excuse me, maybe like high 90s. But that would only be if this turned out to be quite a swift move. If it turns into a week of sideways, for example, just like this, then it's likely that the Bollinger Bands will just continue to rise. The midpoint will rise, and then hopefully there'll be another volatile move to the upside. But the trend is your friend. That you do not need the brains of an archbishop to figure out that there's an uptrend on the daily time frame. I still don't see any bearish divergence on the daily RSI, and I don't really see it on the MACD either. Maybe a little bit of cooling momentum on the MACD, but certainly nowhere near entering into negative territory. So for me, there's more legs in this move. There's obviously going to be a pullback at some point, and when I say pullback, I mean a meaningful one, not just a sideways consolidation. So, a pullback like here, for example, but more of a downside price action, as opposed to these sideways sideways steps. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Daily momentum to the upside. The weekly CME is about to close. And I did mention this in the last couple of weeks. So CME is closing pretty much on the top of the Bollinger Band. Now, what does that mean? Well, I say it's closing. It's still got best part of 8 hours to go. But let's just presume this doesn't change too much in appearance. So at the top of the Bollinger Band, at the moment, there's no weekly expansion of volatility in my eyes because it hasn't really closed above the top of the Bollinger Band. It's just sort of tapped it. If next week there isn't continuation to the upside by the closure of next week, well, then there won't be any volatility expansion to the upside on the weekly time frame, which would mean that Bitcoin's likely on CME to be in a range somewhere between 95 and, for weekly closures at the moment, 110. So a $15,000 range. And therefore, any price action in between those two pivots is fair game and doesn't really change anything. It doesn't change the weekly uptrend. It doesn't change the historical price action in this bull market to date. Because when Bitcoin has been in low volatility environments on a weekly time frame, there has been moves from the top to the bottom of the Bollinger Bands, from the bottom to the top to the bottom to the top, and then it broke through. So far, we've had a move to the bottom and then the top. So yeah, maybe this will lead to volatility expansion on a weekly time frame. It hasn't yet, not in my eyes. If you put BBWP on, which measures it in sort of percentage terms, there probably would be a bit of expansion there. I'm not going to bother because I like to visualize it. I like to see it happening in the width and the width versus narrow breadth of those Bollinger Bands. So yeah, it'll be interesting to see where CME closes in just a few hours' time. Clearly, momentum still to the upside on the momentum indicators I'm using, and they're not in any jeopardy of being compromised. What's interesting is if you look at this bull run so far, when the price has consolidated, it's touched the bottom of the MACD, and then the move that followed that touch, went on for quite some time. Not a huge amount of time, but several weeks, and it was also obviously associated with an expansion of the Bollinger Bands. So we have had several weeks of upside price action, but what we haven't had yet, or what Bitcoin hasn't had, is an expansion of volatility on a weekly time frame to the upside. So yeah, I'm expecting it, but the worst thing you can do is impart your own feelings onto the market structure, because it will probably turn around and give you the opposite of a victory sign. All right, I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you for joining me. If you've enjoyed the video, please like and subscribe and catch me next time. Take care. Enjoy your weekend. Bye-bye.